Okay, so I made all these videos on the secret of light. I could make like 100 more. I don't know if anybody would be interested in watching them. They seem to be really, really popular. I do know a lot about field theory. A lot about field theory. A lot. A lot of stuff I write about might put a lot of people to sleep. Really something very interesting about light. Of course, as I've explained before, light itself is merely a concept. Since we cannot differentiate out light as a principle from what light does, i.e. illumination, there is no subject to be identified. That's like saying, if Bob stops walking where walking is equal to illumination, then Bob doesn't exist. We think of Bob as light, but Bob in himself, of himself, by himself does not exist. So there is nothing, there is no entity as a noun that we call light that exists. Now, the creation of light is a field perturbation, technically, specifically an ether perturbation. When we say a field perturbation, we're actually referring to an ether perturbation, or an inertia perturbation, or a torsion. Technically, be an inertia torsion. There's 1,000 different ways I could say ether perturbation, inertia perturbation, a counterspatial torsion, a transverse coaxial circuit longitudinal. I'm still saying the same thing. Language, you see, Mother Nature, she has no language. She only works off of pressure mediation. Everything is either circular, or it's longitudinal, it's centrifugal, or it's centripetal. Everything is force and motion, inertia and acceleration. Everything's capacitance, resistance, permeability, and permittivity. Magnetic permeability, dielectric permittivity. Now, let's take this into a really simple thing, since I've made tons of videos on this topic already. So, Bob, in the case of Bob being light, cannot exist because from the premise of light, or what we think we understand about light, which humanity has no idea what the hell light is. None whatsoever. None, because light doesn't exist. What we call light we're referring to as illumination. But also, additionally so, we can actually eliminate out illumination. How can I do that rather easily? So now that we know, using and applying retroductive Platonic and Pythagorean logic, retroduction, or apophaticism, is a lost via negativa methodology of comprehension that the ancient Greeks and Indians understood countless thousands of years ago, and there's not a single book out there about it today, and it would help everybody in the world if they understood how to do it, but there's not even a single book in the world on the topic, and there's only a couple of articles. By applying Platonic logic to light, illumination, and what we think illumination is, we can eliminate out both light and illumination. Now, we know that the phenomena of illumination, if you're using the four Maxwellian field equations, of a change over a period of time with x vector can be quantified, i.e. illumination, where we actually have x lumens over x period of time, which is exactly how a light meter works, of which I've got like 8 light meters. So that's quantifiable, not quantifiable in the absolute sense, since we're talking about an inertia perturbation, but we're still talking about measurable effects. We've eliminated out light. What about eliminating out illumination as well? Now, logically, as I've explained it countless thousands of times, when we speak about Bob, i.e. light, Bob as light does not exist. If we say if Bob stops walking, then Bob disappears. In other words, we can never define Bob in himself, by himself. There's no way to actually define light. How are you going to define light with the light bulb turned off, right? You got a battery inside of a flashlight, and the flashlight's sitting there turned off. Where's the light then? Well, there is no light. Until you release the power from the battery, it's sheer energy, right? So it's the release of inertia. We end up with a field perturbation. So there is no light. No, light in itself cannot be defined other than outside of illumination, which is a vector over a period of time with x of resultant effect, which should apply to the four Maxwellian field equations. We quantify electromagnetic energy, i.e. light, the coaxial circuit of light, longitudinal pulse perturbation, rarefaction, compression, transverse, whether linear or circular polarization of electromagnetism, transverse to the coaxial longitudinal circuit, that is the pulse perturbation of the dielectric, the center core. I don't know if you know how a coax cable works, but can we actually even then, therefore, additionally so, now that we've eliminated light using Pythagorean logic, i.e. Bob doesn't exist outside of defining Bob in motion. Therefore, light cannot exist by definition as a noun, as a principle, as a subject. Light is only potential. In the case of the flashlight, in the most simplex example, I don't have a flashlight here, but I think you know how a flashlight works. Light doesn't exist until we're talking about illumination, or release of that energy which is transformed into electromagnetic radiation. But what about illumination? Now, if there's only two things in the universe, yourself and the sun, let's say you're like 1,000,000 miles away from the sun, you got your spacesuit on, and you're floating there in the void of space, and your back is turned to the sun. Just two things in the universe, you and the sun. Your back's turned to it, looking out. There's nothing else in the universe, just you and the sun. That is going to be the blackest, going to be blacker than a well digger's butthole at 3 o'clock in the morning, isn't it? You're really, really close to that gigantic ball of gas, the sun, creating light, but there's not any light to be seen anywhere. In this case, we're not referring to light, since light doesn't exist by Platonic definition. Neither does illumination. What do we mean by illumination that we can therefore additionally also eliminate out illumination? Well, this seems like some crazy shit. Not only have you tried to negate light, which I easily have done already, irrefutably so, I might remind you, but how can we also eliminate out illumination? We only understand or comprehend illumination through capacitance, resistance, permeability, permittivity. Why do black things heat up more in the sun? They have a low dielectric permittivity to light. In other words, it doesn't, let's say there's a new sort of carbon nanotube stuff. It's called ultra black. It absorbs 99.999% of light. It is literally the blackest substance any human being has ever created. They're little carbon straw, nano straws. It's literally a super black object. If they can make that really cheaply, it'd be so useful for photography. We only understand illumination through resistance. Why do we get, light reflecting off the top of this matte aluminum case? It's, we have the release of energy over here. Do I actually see light at all? Light doesn't exist. I should specifically say, do I see illumination anywhere? No. You see the resistance of a field perturbation, or technically an ether perturbation. That resistance is dielectric permittivity, or lack thereof. This black surface has a high dielectric permittivity. This silver surface, or as Eric Dollard would call it, a dielectric reflector, in this case it's aluminum. Aluminum's not the best conductor, it's decent enough, right? A lot of crap conductive coils made out of aluminum. Has dielectric reflector. Has a low dielectric permittivity, hence dielectric reflector. So not only does light not exist, but illumination itself does not exist. We're talking about an ether. Remember, two things in the universe. You and the sun, you have your back turned to the sun, right? If your back was not turned to the sun, then we're talking about the permeability, permittivity of the back of your eyeball or your retina, right? So, what are we talking about? Light doesn't exist. We're referring to an ether perturbation. But that ether perturbation can never be acknowledged or measured. Even a light meter has a little few photosites in a light meter. Basically just like the photosites on your camera, except there's just a few of them. To do a light meter reading, that's all it takes. It works off the charge from the silicone. I said silicone. I meant silicon. Sorry, it's really late at night now. The charge potential off the silicon photosites, there's like 4 or 5 of them on our light meter. From the light that's captured over a given period of time, of course there's nothing actually captured. It's literally the resistance and the dielectric permittivity of those photosites, the same thing as any other camera, of course. So we've eliminated out light, we've eliminated out illumination. Everything that you thought you understood about light is absolutely nothing other than conceptual bullshit and has nothing to do with the way Mother Nature works. And if you actually think about it, if you have the ability to think very deeply, you will understand that I'm correct. Nothing that I said is even remotely refutable. It's not even remotely refutable. This is absolutely bare essential 101 brass knuckles Platonic logic. The very principle, the noun that we call light, does not exist. We were referring to illumination, but illumination additionally so does not exist because its principle does not exist until we have resistance. What is resistance? Resistance is this, matter. If there's only one thing in this room and the camera is recording out of the blackest space. There's no floor, there's no me, there's no nothing. You would not see anything. I've got lights all surrounding here. All these lights are still turned on. The only thing in the universe would be the camera that's filming me and these lights. No me, no floor, no nothing, no earth. Do you think you would see anything? No, this camera would be recording pitch black. Now here's the question you need to answer yourself. If there's tons of light pouring into this particular spatial region, and space has no properties, this particular three-dimensional Cartesian vector locus with the x parameters of a basketball, have tons of light pouring in, but there's nothing in the universe other than these lights and this camera, that camera is not going to record anything other than pitch freaking black. Well, there's got to be tons of light here. Yeah, but there's no resistance here. Light doesn't exist, neither does illumination. We're only talking about an ether perturbation that necessitates resistance from something to manifest. The manifestation of what we conventionally call light or illumination is the only thing that there is. But that is resistance and dielectric permittivity, or lack thereof. Something black, something silver, something gray. Why doesn't anybody teach this stuff in school? It's because humanity isn't evolved enough yet to understand this sort of stuff. Now, Walter Russell wrote a book on the secret of light, but he didn't talk about any of this stuff. The only thing intelligent he actually wrote in that book, by the way, because I know someone's going to bring up Walter Russell, is that he said that light doesn't move. And he is right, light doesn't move. Waves out in the middle of the ocean don't move either. You know, one causes another, but they don't actually move. You know, one perturbs this one, perturbs that one, but they don't go like that. Not in a perfect system. You know, if we have winds and whatnot, you know, the waves do move, but that's winds and that's other factors, but the waves themselves don't move. If you actually have a zero wind, you actually have a piston pushing in on the water, you'll see that the waves are doing this number. They're not propagating. Waves of what? Because waves are not a thing either. Waves are what something does, not what something is. Everybody should repeat that to their science professor. It was so simple, it'll stump your science professor. Tell them that, hey, professor, you said waves, but waves are not a thing. Like, what are you talking about? Waves are what something does, not what something is. He'll look at you like you're totally crazy. I hope you like this video. If you do, you can always make a small donation. You can tell me to jump off a cliff, whatever makes you happy. The donation tab is below, because I live really simply. Phew. Well, it's been a long day today. Thank you, and goodbye.